Hello to you. I am ASMR Beetle, and today I'm going to be talking about a very, very personal subject. I'm going to be a little more personal than I usually am. I'm going to talk about autism, and yes, I've done that before, but today I'm not going to be talking about autism in general. I'm going to be talking about my experience with it. I planned to do that anyway this week, but there also came a request for it, so, well, I'm going to talk about how it shaped me growing up and stuff like that. So we're not going to talk so much about the general stuff today, but more about how I have dealt with having autism. So before we begin, for those who don't know, autism is sort of a disability which can cause challenges with social interactions, especially with people your same age. It can cause, well, extreme shyness, not just shyness, but extreme shyness, and, often difficulties sort of communicating and socializing with others. And there are various scales to autism. I have mild autism, so I can interact and socialize with friends, family, stuff like that. And of course, every person with autism is different. Just as every person with ADHD, for example, is different, every person with autism is different. So there are some autists who are more social than others. As for me, I can be very uncomfortable in big crowds and around strangers, but I'm very comfortable with people I know. I can be super talkative with friends, family, and people I feel comfortable and safe around. So yeah, you cannot probably see what I am a little feeling on some nervousness here. You can see I'm doing that, that psychological, that thing when people are nervous, and that's because I am a little nervous today, because I'm going to tell some of my personal story, and I haven't done that much before. So many people with autism can struggle with social interactions, and sometimes even with some practical everyday stuff. I don't struggle as much as many other people with autism do, but I have my struggles. But I have mild autism, so I'm going to talk about me and how this all affected me growing up. It's very important to realize that when I was a child, and that was in the 2000s, well, in the 1990s and the 2000s, but mostly in the 2000s, because I'm born in 1994, so in the 2000s, I was not aware I had autism. During children's school, I knew on some level that I was different from the other kids, but I didn't know what it was or why. I didn't know I had any sort of disability. I wasn't aware of it. I remember there were occasional checks and stuff like that, but I didn't really fully understand what was going on around me. I knew that I struggled with interacting with the other kids socially. I didn't really get any new friends in school or stuff like that for the most part. I were friends with my sister, and I had a kid in the neighborhood who I was friends with until I was about 12 years old. And during what we in Norway call for 7th class, I guess you could call it 7th grade in international terms, but 7th class, that's when, and when I was around 12 years old, that's how it works in Norway. And that's the final year of children's school. I actually got free friends, but we all drifted apart in the years after. So I've had a few temporary friendships with people my own age, and then I've always been great friends with my sister. That has lasted. But I just struggle at interacting with other children. I didn't want to even, to be honest. I love it. I had a great time at home with family. I had an awesome grandmother, grandfather. I had a great father and mother and a great sister. Everything in terms of home was great. But at school I struggled, but I still eked and lived through it. I preferred being in my own world, in my own imagination. A trait I think is very much common to many people with autism, rather than interacting with the other children for some reason. And I felt safer with adults than with children. I felt I could often talk with adults, the teachers and assistants. And there was an assistant in my class, and because I had a disability, I talked a lot with her. I felt safer, and it was easy for me to talk with adults, and I felt safer that way. And that's also a very common trait for people with autism. You often feel safer talking with older people than people your own age, especially when you're a child and teen. So at school, I was the kid who... At my school, there was like this place outside school when we were out of classes. And there was this nature area with forests and stuff like that at children's school. And I was the kid who often wandered around these grounds alone, just imagining stuff. Because of that, there are a few people from the school time who know who I was and am, because I was, of course, a very special kid. I know that. Because of my disability and because I wandered alone, in the forest. But I liked it that way, There was sometimes initiatives to try to get me to socialize with other children, but none of them really worked out, to be honest. And and now I'm sure some of you wonder, was I bullied? No, I wasn't actually. Amazingly, I wasn't. Yes, there were occasionally incidents with some other children and teens, but it never became bullying. I was never bullied properly. It never became anything. Even if there were incidents, there was like one time when it just stopped. Of course, for some reason I wasn't bullied. But the other children in my class knew who I was, and I did actually have like a birthday party where I invited the children over, and that went well, and there were absolutely classmates who appreciated me and stuff like that, and who liked me. It's not what I was like completely excluded or anything, but it's more what I had trouble interacting with the other children. But I was not bullied, actually. And so, yeah, I just wasn't for some reason. Which I'm of course very happy for, but I wasn't, but but of course during my children's school years I wasn't aware of autism, but I did have some very supportive assistant and teachers, especially during 7th class, the final year of children's school, and that was the best school year I had, because then I got a few friends, even though it turned out to be temporary, and I had a teacher who truly was a great teacher, and she understood me, and it was just a great year, and it was a fun year. And that year I was a little more part of class and stuff than I had been the other years. But then we transitioned to youth school, and to be honest, this is the worst time of my life, because where everything fell apart. So we are now back in 2007 to 2010. That's my youth school years. In Norway we call it for youth school. And these years these school years were just weren't good. I went back to being, or at least feeling, completely invisible. I wasn't able to interact with other teens in any way. We also come new teens from other schools in, and it was just and the friendships the friendships I had the last day of children's school fell apart, and to add to this, the hormones in the system started raging. I went through the change, the whole growing up thing, puberty, and it was not fun, because getting those feelings on top of all the other stuff, it was just so much. And I know what a lot of people struggle with this time in our life. It's not just people with disabilities. It is people who are normal too. For many people, it's an awful time of life. And for me, it was not. I was super happy at home. At home, I gamed, I talked with family, I watched movies, I ate chips and chocolate when I gamed. At home, I was happy. Some of my best memories from youth school is actually the days when I just didn't bother to go to school. I was not happy, and just stayed at home and did something else. And it's a shame to say, but about some of my best memories from that time. At the time, I just couldn't see that much of a future for me in any way, because, and that was also the time I learned I had autism, mild autism, and a disability, and that made me feel even more different. And at the time, that was difficult for me. I have to admit, that was very difficult for me. And there's one thing I remember vividly. A Christmas 17 years ago. My God, 17 years ago. Like, how old am I, man? Anyway, 17 years ago, I was 14 years old. And it was a Christmas of 08, and it was before Christmas. It was the final days of school before Christmas, and the class was going to church. I had always attended this previous years, but this year I just couldn't go. I just couldn't go. So I walked home instead, and I remember it was dark outside. It was cold, it was snow, and I remember I felt so alone then. So alone. So very alone. And yes, I had a loving family. It was, in that regard, it was okay, but it didn't feel good. And I felt like how it looked outside reflected how I felt inside. I didn't have the light in me I do now. It just felt so awful inside that day. I think I cried even. It was really awful. And 2009 continued to be a difficult year, to be honest. But then, towards the end of 2009, I started an initiative, and that had been the plan all along, it turned out, from some of my teachers. And they wanted me into a class for people with very extensive disabilities. Many of them had much more extensive disabilities than me. So I got in with a guy who was sort of a counselor or an advisor at school. I believe he's actually the headmaster of school now, but at the time he was an advisor and counselor, and he had a daughter who also had a disability, so he understood, and he drove me to what we in Norwegian call the further education building. That's the building for people who are 16 to 18 years old, roughly, because that's where the disability class was located. And he drove me there, and we checked out the class, talked with the teachers there, and we applied for the class. And I was so afraid of not getting in, because I felt like if I didn't have this, then what would happen with me and my life? Thankfully, I got in. And but it was a very difficult time of my life. And to be honest, when I was done with youth school in 2010, 15 years ago, it's absurd but it's been as much as 15 years, but it does. That day when that was done, I was so happy, so happy. Yeah, I did not go out of youth school with great grades. Of course I didn't, because I didn't have a great time of school. Yes, I paid attention to some of the subjects, I did learn a few things, but in some ways the entire thing felt pointless. But when I went out, when I came to the class with disabilities, and well, that was a much better experience. And I went into the further education building in the city, got to explore its halls and stuff like that, but also attend the classes and school for the people with disabilities, but many of them had much more extensive disabilities than mine. Some of them were very special, they were people who really were very different from society's norm. Most of them were not really like me. They had much more extensive disabilities, so they were very different from me. So I didn't really gain any new friendships, but most of them were nice, and I got nice. I got nice contact with the adults, the assistants, and the teachers in the class. And I even played card games during class breaks, with some of the assistants and some of the other students, and it was a much better experience, because finally I felt safe. I felt safe. I still dealt with anxiety at times, at home and stuff like that. I could still feel anxiety, and that's when I found meditation videos and later ASMR. Yes. So in 2013 I found ASMR, and that helped me deal with anxiety. And I had no idea then how much ASMR will play a role in my life. I saw these content creators, and I didn't for a second believe I one day would be one of them. I didn't believe that was in the cards. But back to that age, the class for people with disabilities was very cozy and nice, and I even got a history teacher who learned me a lot about history. And in that class I was regarded as very talented, as very intelligent, and as someone who was very gifted and had a bright future, because I impressed a lot of the teachers, because of I had a lot of theoretical knowledge. I did presentations, stuff like that, and I even got a special class, a special history class to learn more about history, and it was nice. I had a much better experience. But because of the way this class was built, you didn't earn grades in this class, because this class wasn't really built for people like me who had more theoretical potential. It was built more for people who were meant to be sort of into... It was built more for people who were meant to transition into workplaces for people with disabilities, but those workplaces weren't for me, and my teachers knew that, so we didn't really know which way I would go next. We checked out the auto path, the history path. I know what my history teacher would probably... He was sort of into the whole history field himself, and would probably regard the author or history path as something we checked out, but we didn't really find anything which could be okay for people with disabilities, so there was really not anything for people like me. So I did actually get an additional year, but in 2014 it was done, and I had to move on to other things. So when I left the further education school, I didn't really have any future, in the sense that I didn't know what to do next. I knew I had autism and stuff like that, but what were I to do now? Yes, I had lots of theoretical knowledge, I was talented, but where would I go next now? What would I do? I just didn't know, you know. And so came a few years of home, and we did try to check out various stuff, but during those years of home, I learned a lot of stuff, and even though I didn't really have anything to do. And then came the very difficult period in my life when my mom got cancer, and she was getting seriously ill, and that was not fun. And then the summer of 2017, she went to the doctor and she was put straight into the hospital, and of course she was really ill, like seriously ill. And she did get back home occasionally, but it went from the hospital to it went from home to the hospital to home to a hospital-like place and to home. She was not well, you know. It was a very difficult time, but around the same time, I finally managed to find a path onwards in my life. And I had to brave some steps to do it. I got into contact with a former teacher, and she helped me get into and apply to sort of adult courses. And I got into an adult course for what would this subject be called in English? Well, the study of society. And I took that course, and I went out with good grades, with nice grades. But I did it during a very difficult time in my life, during a time when my mom was ill, and you know, and a few months after I finished, my mom died, you know, and that was a very difficult time of my life. And honestly, it kind of felt that day like the world ended, and in a way it did, because the world with my mom in it ended that day. But of course, I know now that even though it was awful that day, the world continued to exist, and I found many happy moments. But that day was not fun. And then I later on attended the history course, because I'd always wanted in my life to do a history course or history class, and finally I got to do it. And I went out with top grades, and I didn't know before I attended if I would do that, but I wasn't super surprised, because I've always been history interested. And my history teacher even said to me that she imagined I could easily study at a university. She believed that if I wanted to go to complete the various adult courses, then I could easily get into university. She said she imagined me studying at a university. I haven't really gone that path, at least not so far, but it was still a very nice compliment to get from my teacher. So, yeah. And the reason I'm telling this in relation to autism is because when I had to do the first adult course, I had to brave steps. I have social anxiety, and strangers make me nervous. And then the first time I did the first adult course, I stayed out in the hall before entering the classroom, because I was so nervous, because, you know, I was venturing into a classroom of strangers. So I took a few minutes, and I just felt an anxiety, and then I just built it up in myself, and then I just threw myself in. I opened the door, and I found a desk, and I sat behind it, and it went fine, you know. So, but there were steps I had to brave, you know, and eventually I managed to do presentations in front of the class, interact with the other students during group assignments. It was a little difficult for me because of my social anxiety, but I did it, and I'm proud of that. and it shows that you can really overcome anything if you set your mind to it. I actually also used to be unable to swim, but during my time with the special disability class, I had someone who truly helped me in that regard. She helped me overcome my fears and helped me swim. So now I can swim, actually. I just wanted to add that. Finally, apologies, I just had to check on something. Finally, and when the history course was done, the pandemic had arrived. Actually, the final lessons during the history course was via Teams meeting online because of the pandemic. Because schools had to shut down, and the pandemic had arrived. So right now, I didn't really know what to do during the pandemic because society was shutting down. So I wasn't entirely sure what to do next. But then, after a while, I felt a calling to the whole ASMR thing, and I had been so certain all my life that I would, both due to my autism and everything, never ever venture into social media. I was absolutely sure that I could not get thousands of followers and stuff like that. I didn't believe that, really. I could hope and dream sometimes, but I didn't expect or believe it because I knew it was unlikely. What I'm experiencing now with having built this community and be approaching 10k followers on YouTube, it's actually, for me, with my disability, quite absurd because I didn't believe that would ever happen. But I felt a calling to ASMR. I wanted to give it a try. And when I did, in summer 22, I tried to film a few test videos. And then in winter 23, I launched myself onto YouTube. And I was so nervous. And I had also had an online project a few years earlier, which had completely flopped. So I know that in life there is no guarantee what things will work out. But it did work out for me, and this time. And I also got to fulfill my dream of building up a community, which I'm in the process of doing. And because of my autism, I think everyone who launches a YouTube channel, disability or not, is nervous. But because of my autism, I was nervous. I was so nervous, and I had probably been nervous even without autism, but when it went fine, people were nice, and it just starts to continue to grow, and I just can't believe it has come here. And now I have a path no one expected me to take. I work with ASMR and with social media and as admin of the Muffin community, and I work, and it's a path I never had expected. I mean, I heard about sometimes people who did social media and stuff, but I never believed I would be one of the people who did it. It just didn't seem like that was in the cards. There was no one who even could see that path for me. But I just felt this calling inside me, what it was right to do. And so yes, my life has had quite a few challenges, but there's also been lots of good moments, and many challenges I've overcome, and that shows to me that our disabilities needn't be a burden. And perhaps because of autism, I have lots of enthusiasm, lot of mental energy, and lots of interests and hobbies which keeps me happy and entertained all the time. And even doing this, working with this, it just has given me so much, and it's me really having found my path in life. It took time before I found my path in life, but I did find my path, and that's amazing. But it was something I never expected this would become my path, but it did, and that's so cool. I hope that can inspire other people with autism watching too, knowing what, yes, sometimes you have to take gradual steps, You have to take it one step at a time, but you can overcome the barriers. You have to be patient sometimes, but it's possible. It's possible. It's possible. And, I am very, very grateful for that. So, as you can see, many years ago, I did not have the light and strength inside me, I did know. But over the years and over time, due to the things I've experienced, I have earned that strength. I have earned that strength and that light, and now I'm calmer. Do I still have anxiety? Not in the same as before, but I still can have it occasionally. But I'm very good at calming myself down, at finding calm, finding my inner light. And I try to help other people do the same now. So today I told a lot of my personal story. I have a very supportive family, a very loving family, and I'm now overcoming a lot of barriers, really. And hopefully I will continue to do that. And for me, who had autism, to launch myself onto social media and launch myself onto YouTube and film videos which are viewed by people, it's quite a step, but it's been valuable. So I sort of gone from complete anonymity to doing this. And although I'm a small channel, I'm very humble too. I'm really grateful. Really, really grateful. So a religious or spiritual person might say that God had a plan for you, even if it was a different and special plan. Where I, as a person who is non-religious, would maybe say something like, you found your path in life. And I did. It took time, and it came in a completely different way than expected. It often does. But I did, and I'm happy for it. And I wouldn't change a thing about my past, despite all the challenges that has been. So I think there's one more thing I want to add or say before I'm done for today. Yeah, so we were in on me finding my path, and I hope everyone finds their path, by the way. And I found light, and now you can see I'm more relaxed because I'm stretching out. And I filmed a lot today, so I'm a little tired too. There's been some long videos today I filmed. But I found my path, and I'm happy for that. And I hope I can help others find light and joy too. It was just something else, but it just... like I just want to add something else. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, but I hope at least listening to me just ramble about this has been helpful to some people. I hope me telling my personal story has been helpful to people and has added stuff to... has added something to your day, I'm just trying to find that last piece, but it just slips my mind, and it's so annoying, when you have something and it just slips your mind, because there was one more thing I wanted to add today. So, if I can't find it, I will just have to turn off the camera and just edit the video until I can find it. But hopefully I can find it without that. But if not, I just have to do it that way. So, yeah. By the way, I hope you're doing great. Okay, I believe that I'm just going to have to edit the video here, so it's just because apparently so long as the camera is on me, it just doesn't come back, so yeah. Okay, I found it again. What I wanted to say was, I now love being different, because I've realized that being normal has its challenges too. I no longer long to be normal. I realize that because of being different, I have been allowed freedoms a normal life isn't allowed, and it makes my story unique and special. So if you're different, appreciate that, because that's a very unique life experience to have, and it's a beautiful story. And I'm so happy my life has been the way it has, because it's that story, those challenges, which has helped create a light within me and ignite that light, and which now I can use to help others. And without that light, I may not have become an ASMR artist and done the things I do now. I believe that this was how it was meant to be. There was a plan there. I'm sort of spiritual, so I like to say that there was a plan there, and even if it wasn't, I still feel there is a lot of meaning in things having become the way they have become, at least for me. So I appreciate being different, and I hope people who are different who watch this appreciate it too. Remember, a normal life, and I know people who have had a normal life is also full of struggles and can be difficult too, in a different type of way. I know that being different also comes with the challenges, but there are a few things you learn, and a few things which can be good about it. Hope I helped you guys today, and wish you all a great, great, great day.